Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today I'm going to be doing a Gaia the Fierce Knight deck profile. So I'm really excited to do some for you guys because this deck is an extremely nostalgic deck based around Gaia the Fierce Knight and all of its awesome fusion monsters going into awesome boss monsters like Gaia the Magical Knight of Dragons, which is an awesome OTK piece. So without further ado, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like get your name description in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Gaia the Magical Knight. This card is definitely a 3 of in the build, and actually the best normal summon in the entire deck, as this card is always treated as a Gaia the Fierce Knight card. And if you control no monsters, or your opponent controls a monster with 2300 or more attack, you can normal summon this card without tributing. And if this card is normal or special summon, you can actually special summon a level 5 dragon monster from your hand or graveyard in defense position, essentially summoning out your copy of Curse of Dragon so you can go in for your fusion plays. We then play 3 copies of Curse of Dragon, the Cursed Dragon. This card is definitely a 3 of in the build and such a powerful card because it has the effect that if this card is normal or special summon, you can add a spell or trap from your deck to your hand that specifically lists the card Gaia the Dragon Champion in its text, which is an amazing ability to instantly get to our copy of Spiral Fusion so that we can make our awesome boss monsters. We then play 2 copies of Curse of Dragonfire. Curse of Dragonfire is really cool to be able to play in this deck, as this card is actually a walking polymerization, but if this card is normal or special summon, you can actually target a field spell card on the field and destroy it, and once per turn, you can fusion summon a fusion monster from your deck using monsters that you control as fusion material, including this card, which is a great effect that this card is a walking polymerization. We then play 3 copies of Artillery Catapult Turtle. Artillery Catapult Turtle is really good as a 3 of in the deck. This card has the ability to contribute a monster to special summon a Gaia the Fierce Knight monster or a level 5 dragon monster from your hand or deck to your side of the field, which will instantly get you the exact monster to your side of the field so you can go in for your fusion plays. We then play 3 copies of Blackluster Soldier, Envoy of the Beginning. BLS is just really good to be able to play in the deck as a 3 of because you just have to banish a light and a dark monster to summon out this card to your side of the field. Plus it's a really nostalgic card to be able to play in the deck. This card helps out a lot overall because it can target a monster on the field and banish that target face up, but this card can't attack the turn you activate that effect, or during the damage step, if this attacking card destroys an opponent's monster in battle, it can make a second attack in a row, which is a really cool ability just to help you go in for game. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get in to the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Terraforming. Terraforming is definitely a 1 of in the build to search out the exact field spell that we need. We then play a single copy of Set Rotation. Set Rotation is the exact same reason as Terraforming. We do play 2 different field spells in this deck, so this card is really helpful in the build to get to the exact one that we need. We then play a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is really good at just stopping your opponent's hand traps when we're going in for all of our plays. We then play a single copy of Instant Fusion. Instant Fusion is amazing as a 1 of in the build to help you summon out a copy of Millennium Eyes Restrict, essentially being a second copy of Called by the Grave for the deck so you can stop hand traps. We then play a single copy of Dragon's Mirror. Dragon's Mirror is great in the deck. This card is basically Miracle Fusion for the deck, helping you go in for an additional fusion play by just banishing materials from the graveyard. We then play 2 copies of Ultra Polymerization. Ultra Polymerization is definitely a 2 of, and I really like this card in the deck because it brings back the fusion materials back to your side of the field. You pay 2,000 life points to fusion summon a fusion monster from your deck using 2 monsters that you control as fusion material. Also, neither player can activate cards or effects in response to this card's activation, making it a speed spell 4. You can also banish this card from the graveyard, and then you target 1 fusion monster that was fusion summoned with this card's effect, and you special summon all its fusion materials back to your side of the field, but their effects are negated and their attack and defense becomes 0, so that you can go into another fusion play using another fusion spell. But it basically gives you almost like a free fusion summon, which is amazing. I really like this card in the deck overall, because it helps out so much in this build. We then play 2 copies of Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm is really good at dealing with your opponent's back row or their attack position monsters so we can go in for game. We then play 2 copies of Spiral Spear Strike. Spiral Spear Strike is amazing as a 2-of in the build because this card has a really cool ability that lets you do piercing damage with your Gaia cards, and also has a really cool ability if a Gaia the Dragon Champion inflicts battle damage with this card's effect, basically doing piercing damage, you get to draw 2 cards from your deck and then discard a card, which is an amazing ability to be able to use. Plus this card is searchable off of Galloping Gaia, which is amazing to be able to get to this card, so you can do that piercing damage and get a draw 2 and a discard 1. Plus it is stackable, so you have both of these cards on your side of the field, you actually get a draw 4 and a discard 2, which is absolutely insane. We then play 3 copies of Spiral Fusion. Spiral Fusion is amazing in this deck and helps you go in for all your fusion plays, and it's searchable off your copy of Curse of Dragon the Cursed Dragon, but this card lets you fusion summon a dragon fusion monster from your extra using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. And if you fusion summon a Gaia the Dragon Champion by this effect, it gains 2600 attack points. Also, it can make 2 attacks on monsters during each battle phase, helping you OTK. We then play 3 copies of Galloping Gaia. Galloping Gaia is amazing as a 3-of in the deck because this card basically lets you reveal your copy of Gaia to search Curse of Dragon, or reveal your copy of Curse of Dragon to search Gaia, essentially getting you the exact monster that you need from your deck to your hand. Plus the artwork is amazing. We then play 3 copies of Gateway to Chaos. Gateway to Chaos is definitely a 3-of in the build because this card is basically the Rhoda for the deck, letting you add a Gaia the Fierce Knight monster from your deck to your hand when this card's activated, searching out your copy of Gaia the Magical Knight. We then play 3 copies of Book of Eclipse. Book of Eclipse is really good in the deck just to flip all monsters on the field into face down defense position so we can go in for piercing damage with Spiral Spear Strike, but it's also really good as a board breaker just to flip opponent's monsters face down so we can swing in for game. We then play 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance is really good as a 3-of in the deck, so we only summon about 1 to 2 monsters from our X deck usually to OTK, so this card is really good to banish 6 from our X deck and then draw 2. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with 3 copies of Gaia the Magical Knight of Dragons. This card is an amazing boss monster and it's just such a cool card. This card requires a Gaia the Fierce Knight monster plus a level 5 dragon monster to make this card. This card's name becomes Gaia the Dragon Champion while on the field. And you only use each of the following effects this card once per turn. During the main phase quick effect, you can actually target one of their card on field, and this card loses exactly 2600 attack, and if it does, destroy that card. And when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can make this card gain 2600 attack points, making it absolutely massive to OTK your opponent. We then play 3 copies of Sky Galloping Gaia the Dragon Champion. This card is also definitely a 3-of in the build because this card's name becomes Gaia the Dragon Champion while it's on the field. And if this card is special summon, you can add a Spiral Spear Strike from your deck or your graveyard to your hand, and when this card declares an attack on an opponent's monster, you can change its battle position of that monster, which is a pretty cool ability to be able to do to make sure you're going to do piercing damage, especially since this card does search Spiral Spear Strike. We then play 3 copies of Curse of Dragon, the Magical Knight Dragon. This card is really cool as a 3-of in the build, and this card just helps out so much in the deck. Is that this card is fusion, so if you fusion summon a level 7 dragon fusion monster, you can also banish the materials from your graveyard, which is a really cool effect that this card almost makes your fusion spells into miracle fusions, which is absolutely amazing. And if this card is fusion summoned, you can actually target a spell or trap in the graveyard that mentions a Gaia the Dragon Champion and add it back to your hand, essentially letting you grab your copy of Spiral Fusion back out of the graveyard so you can go in for another fusion play, which is awesome. We then played 3 copies of Millennium Eyes Restrict. Millennium Eyes Restrict is really good to be able to summon off your copy of Instant Fusion, and since we are playing Extravagance in this deck, I decided to play 3 copies of this card, so our copy of Instant Fusion is never going to not be able to be played, because we also have the copy of the Curse of Dragon Fusion that we can summon since it is a level 5 monster that's a fusion, so we can summon out either of these cards off the copy of the Instant Fusion, which is really cool. But this card is basically like Call by the Grave, it just negates monster effects, which is really nice to be able to do. We then play a single copy of Flare Metal, because every time your opponent breathes, they're going to take 500 points of damage, which is really cool to be able to do to close out games, just in case you can't OTK. And you have 2 level 7 monsters on your side of the field, you can just summon out this card to your side of the field and do burn damage. We then play a single copy of Typhon. Typhon's really good in the deck, just as an option to be able to make, because it's basically live in every single deck. And then finally play a single copy of Relinquished Anima, just in case we need to gobble up an opponent's monster. So, that's it for the deck, guys. I would enjoy it. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played a Gaia the Fierce Knight deck before, you should definitely give this deck a try, because it's extremely fun to be able to play. It's awesome to be able to OTK your opponent, and it's just super nostalgic to be able to play this deck based around one of Yugi's ace monsters. So, that's gonna do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.